Hey everyone, this is Faiz,
Hey, this is Adil.
and welcome back to another episode where we're going to give you a rank of the best to worst Harry Potter movies. Now, there are no worst Harry
Yep.
Potter movies; they're all really, really good. But I think this is going to be great for you to know, the best movies of Harry Potter that I like, and the ones that I don't like as much. And the same goes for Adil.
Yep, sounds good.
Now, so what we're gonna do is we're gonna start off with the lower tier.
Yep.
So we're gonna break it up to three tiers: the lower tier, middle tier, and the higher tier, right? So Adil, do you want to go over which ones you think are the lowest tier?
Yeah, so I'll start it off. Again, like how Faze mentioned, there are no bad movies. I think Harry Potter did a great job. The franchise is incredible. All the movies, big fan of, whether it's nostalgia or cinematography. In my low tier, I have to start off with the first film.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yes. I know, bold take maybe, but I think just the way, like when I rewatch it, I think it's a great rewatch, right? It's a great Christmas movie. Like I get that aspect of it, that nostalgic aspect of it. But compared to the other films, I think it just didn't hit the mark for me. Primarily, I think it might have been the acting. I think they were too young,
Mm-hmm.
and I think that acting kind of illustrated how young they were. Not saying anything against them, right?
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
like I think they were getting the feel of their characters as well. This
Mm-hmm.
was like, when they were first being established as Ron, Hermione, and Harry, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that famous scene, it's not Leviosa, it's
Yeah.
Leviosa,
Yeah.
like all that exaggeration and some of these acting nuances, I think that was one aspect. But again, it was a great film. It's just compared to the other seven, I thought it was the lowest for me.
Okay. The one that I'm gonna rank the lowest
Yep.
is Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince.
Interesting. Okay. Okay.
So, ironically, fun fact for everyone, it's the fourth longest Harry Potter book, yet it's the third shortest Harry Potter movie.
Dang. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Because the fourth, fifth, and seventh are like the biggest, and
Yeah.
then sixth is up there.
Yeah, so it's the fourth longest, I think, right after the Goblet of Fire, and that completely correlates to the reason why I don't like it, which is the fact that I felt like they left a lot of it out.
Hmm.
Now, obviously, these are all really big books, so they can't cover every single thing, and that's fine, right? They left out some things that I really wanted to watch, and we'll talk about that in a
Hmm.
second too. But to be honest, when I was watching Half Blood Prince, it felt like a romantic comedy. It
I could
just
see that.
it just
Yeah.
Ron just felt like he was like a parody.
Yeah.
Like he was like, I think it was like the love potion or something that he
Yeah.
was
Yeah.
on.
Yeah. Yeah. Slughorn's
Yeah.
love portion.
So I just felt like
Yeah.
it just felt like a romantic comedy. And I felt like not just, even if you took the romantic part out, it kind of felt like, when Marvel movies try to make these jokes here and there a lot.
Yeah. Like the one-liners that are forced,
Yeah.
kind of.
And I'm
Yeah.
like, it just felt like there was a lot of forced humor. For example, in the movie starts off where Harry is at a cafe in a train station, right?
Yeah. That was
And
honestly, bro. I'm glad you brought that up because to me, in the whole franchise movie, I thought that was the most awkward scene to watch in the whole like 8 films I've
yeah,
seen. I
and,
thought it was super
and
awkward.
I get it. They're trying to add some humor to Harry Potter,
Yeah.
not just the movies, but the character himself,
Yeah.
right? But just how he's kind of flirting with that
Yeah.
waitress,
Yeah. Yeah.
just didn't sit well with me. It kind of was cringy,
Yeah. It was
right?
very cringy.
And then
Yeah.
there was like some scenes where like Dumbledore is before they're gonna go find the locket, right? He's saying, "Oh, Harry, you need a shave," and it's like that wasn't. First of all, he looked very clean shaved,
Yeah.
okay, but also him, like those little remarks like that, it kind of takes you out of it. It kind of takes you out of that experience, and those were just two of many many like sequences. Obviously, like like I said about the love potion that Ron has, and they're just like all like hormonal,
Yeah.
and I get it. They're getting older. They want to showcase
They want
that
to show the
there's.
love interest, like, and their audience is also getting older, right? We're no longer kids. We're
Mhm.
also teenagers and young adult stages.
But at the same time, I felt like, come on, there should have been, like it just felt like a romantic comedy throughout. Also, visually, the movie was very dark.
Yeah.
Now, I'm saying visually, obviously, as the movies progress, they get darker in tone, right?
Yeah. Yep.
But this was also very visually dark. Like I was in the theater and I'm like, I can't see anything.
Hmm.
Like it was really, really dark. It felt like the editor took out all the color saturation and it almost felt black and white in
Yeah.
certain moments. It was really, really dark. It was kind of hard to watch. So that was one thing. And but there were also a couple things that I just didn't enjoy. For example, do you remember the scene, the burrow that went on fire? Bellatrix Lestrange set the borough on fire. It's like the little area where the Weasleys would live, and
Oh yes,
yeah.
yeah. When
So
Jenny went out to go
yeah,
run after Harry, was
yeah,
that
yep,
scene? Yeah,
yep.
yeah.
And that wasn't even in the book.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, and that's something that they kind of added, but I felt like that didn't make any sense because if Bellatrix knew that this is where Harry is, all
Yeah.
right, and they want to kill Harry Potter, so here's your
Why are they
chance.
toying with him?
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
like
either kill him or just let Voldemort know.
yeah,
Like why? With the whole gaslighting
yeah.
of setting this up on fire
Because
and stuff.
that what's the wolf's name? The werewolf.
I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
like he was a prominent character in the
Yeah.
books also, and he's there toying with Harry, like playing around with him, and
Yeah.
it's just that was I didn't even know that was not part of the books.
Yeah, they brought that in, right? But then they took out things that should have been in there. For an example, towards the end of the movie, when Dumbledore dies.
Yep.
So they're supposed to have that the dark mark that goes up when after Dumbledore dies, right? Which is basically showing like, all right, Voldemort's taking over. Dumbledore has now been killed. Come on, there's no battle scene. It's hinted. There's like a sequence where it's hinted that some of like the Dementors or Death Eaters are like coming in to Hogwarts, right? And it all of a sudden becomes really dark. So it's hinted that there's a battle, but they don't show any of that. And that's what I was looking forward to the moment the movie started. I'm like, all right, the first like epic battle.
Yeah.
Didn't show that. They also didn't show the funeral.
Yeah.
And
that was a prominent part in the book, I remember.
And I know they kind of did another scene where everyone, holds up their wands and they light up their wands and it's like a tribute, right? But you need the funeral scene. And that's also when they show like how Ginny, I think, sits next to Harry and they kind of connect, right? So I felt like that would have been great to show the scenes between Ginny and Harry, right? Because all of the other scenes between Ginny and Harry were cringy.
Yeah.
All right.
I mean, like, it's that funeral scene is probably one of the most emotional scenes for the whole Hogwarts community, arguably, right? More top Cedric's death, right?
Exactly.
And you just leave that out of the film?
Yeah.
That's insane.
Yeah. The scenes between Harry and Ginny are so cringy. She feeds him a cookie, and that's supposed to be romantic. She ties his unlaced shoe, and that's supposed to be. I get it. They were trying to go for something cute, but I don't think the execution was that great. Also, their kiss completely felt out of place.
I mean, honestly, like that's a big thing in the community where Ginny's character was just in the movies.
Yeah.
Nowhere near how she was like in the books. Like no emotions and no. So that's why all these things fell forced because we were like, what is this connection with? Like we saw more of a romantic interest and connection between Hermione and Harry.
Yeah.
Which even wasn't there, right? But like it was as a watcher of like not even a reader, like you would be assumed you're like, oh, it makes maybe Hermione likes Harry. Like Jenny aspect, you would only know like because it was being forced to you.
Yeah.
What's another low movie?
Deathly Hallows Part 1.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah. The whole movie just felt like a setup for Part 2, to be very honest. Like we talked about this in other videos where we don't like it when there's a Part 1 and Part 2 because you know that, okay, the epic stuff is going to happen in the second part and everything that's happening in the first part is just going to be a setup. It's just leading in, right? And I felt like in the second half, especially, is the part where it gets a little sluggish because it just feels like Harry, Ron, and Hermione are just going from one location to another, and they're very directionless. And I get it. In the book, they're kind of clueless. It's almost like all hope is lost, and they need to find these Horcruxes and get rid of them. But in the movie, I just felt like it felt just very repetitive, just one location to another, and then Harry and Ron have their argument, and I don't know, there was just a lot. Even like there was like a dance sequence between Harry and Hermione, which sort of felt out of place given the situation that they're in, right? It's like, all right, like there are people dying, there's so much happening, and you guys are gonna dance, right? And then also like Ron has this weird, there was like a dream sequence of seeing Harry and Hermione
and
making out
kiss,
naked, and it's like, was that even necessary? So I felt like there were a couple things that felt out of place, but also once again, it just felt like a setup. And also I do want to say none of these are bad movies. I know I made it sound like I hated Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince. No, great movie, but obviously in the list of all these great movies.
Yeah, we have to be nitpicky. We have to take out, there's a greatness in a lot of these movies, so we have to focus on what we don't like.
Definitely.
Because honestly, like, again, I would rewatch all of them in a heartbeat because they're all incredible. 1 through 8, like I was entertained. in every
Absolutely,
movie.
yeah. So I only had two movies that were on the lower
Yeah,
tier. Do you have any other movies in the lower tier?
be Order of Phoenix.
Okay.
I feel like it missed out on so many critical details about the side characters also. For example, like Neville's parents,
Hmm.
and the fact that like throughout this movie it was like the prophecy was like the big thing, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Like this is like it was mentioned in previous films, in the third film, and then it was brought back in this film. But that prophecy of the boy who lived, explaining whether it could have been Neville or Harry, which is why Voldemort kind of like had his followers attack
hmm,
um, Neville's parents. We never even saw that,
yeah,
like that aspect of it. So like as a watcher, as a reader, I know the history, but watching it, you don't realize the significance of how Neville was literally almost Harry Potter.
yeah.
Like, and then how his parents how were tortured, to what extent they were tortured, and like they left out the part where they actually go visit them in the like his parents are
Right.
alive,
Yeah, yeah,
and like
yeah.
we've never like we only see glimpses of them in like photographs, like we see Harry's parents, in those the Wizarding World where like
Hmm.
they're slightly moving, but like we never see them as their characters. um that was one aspect. And then Umbridge is crazy, we can already say
Yeah.
that no one
Oh
likes
yeah.
her. She was really funny, I guess, and to an extent, right? Like she's sadistic and weird and evil, but wears pink. Like something's wrong with her. But like watching the movie, I didn't understand like what her goal was. Like I know she was like the spy for the Ministry of
Yeah,
Magic,
yeah.
but like why is she doing this? Like
Right.
what like I like why are you
Hmm.
like crazy?
Yeah.
Like what is your purpose? Why do you believe this? Why are you like I understood at this point the Ministry was trying to deny the return of Lord Voldemort,
Hmm.
but like what was her purpose in that?
Yeah.
Also this was like really depressing overall as a movie.
Hmm.
This is when like I forgot what those creatures are called. um
Yeah, yeah. I
uh
know. I forgot the name, but I know what you're talking
yeah,
about. Yeah.
like the ones where you see like death people, and then you
Yeah.
see like Luna Lovegood's interaction with Harry for
Yeah.
the first time. I thought Luna was a great, phenomenal character, so
Yeah.
I'm glad that she was introduced in this movie. But like you just see like the depressingness and the death. Like this is post Cedric Diggory's
Hmm.
death. This is post Voldemort being like alive, basically.
Yeah.
Um, Another aspect of the movie I really did not enjoy was like Harry's emotional immaturity. Um, like I know he was going through this internal struggle,
Yeah.
but he was really like sassy and angry and disrespectful to a lot of
Yeah.
people.
Yeah.
Um,
He had kind of like an attitude.
yeah, and like I get it where he was coming from, but like at the same point in the books, I felt more like it was an internal turmoil that he was going through,
Hmm.
and then in the movies, I don't think they could accurately present that because like they have to condense the biggest book
Yeah.
into like 2.5 hours,
Yeah.
right? And then like there's like good parts of it too, right? Like I like the Dumbledore sub like army subplot, that was
Hmm.
pretty cool, but just for me overall, I thought it was just one of the weaker movies in
Yeah.
the franchise.
Yeah.
Another thing too, like Quidditch fan, huge one.
Hmm.
I don't think we saw
Yeah.
any Quidditch thing in this movie. But yeah, so that was my bottom two.
And now we're going into the mid tier. And it's funny because that list starts off with the Order of the Phoenix.
Okay, yeah,
Yeah. So
interesting.
it's like, because I was debating, like, it almost made it to my lower tier
Yeah,
because of exactly the same reasons that you mentioned. But I think there were some things I did enjoy because I felt like this was one of the first movies that started to get more political. Like it almost started to feel like a political thriller with the Ministry kind of going in that Star Wars direction,
yeah,
where you don't know who's good, you don't know who's bad, and then you have the rebellion, right? Which is kind of like Dumbledore's army. For the like you're seeing Harry as a leader now. That's something I really enjoyed seeing because in all the other movies, right? It's just him, Ron, and Hermione,
yeah, as
right?
a
If they're
trio,
if
yeah,
he's doing anything, it's with them,
yeah,
right? In Goblet of Fire, once again, it's him by himself
yeah.
trying to
His
fight.
adventures are more solo in those previous
Yeah,
movies. So he never takes a leadership role because
exactly.
like
Yeah,
it's him or like leading a scaredy
yeah,
cat Ron through the forest, right?
exactly. Yeah. So I felt like I really enjoyed the fact that you're seeing Harry take on leadership. Other students are learning from him, right? So that's something I really enjoyed. I also did enjoy the slight love interest between him and Chang. Like I said, in the sixth movie, I felt like they were going hardcore with the romance, and yet
They were
with
more subtle in the
but
fifth one.
in the
Yeah,
fifth one, it
yeah,
was very subtle. Like you could see some
yeah,
moments where there's something between Ron and Hermione. and then obviously him liking Chang.
Yeah.
So there was I like that. It was subtle, and I thought that was what was cute. I also enjoyed the fact that like Snape is always seen as the worst professor, you know, but he's not even the worst when you compare
Yeah.
him to like Umbridge,
Umbridge. Yeah.
right? You have like a villainous professor now. So I thought that
Yeah.
was kind of fun to watch. Like, what is she up to now? How is she going to ruin things for
Yeah.
Harry and Dumbledore's army?
Like she was straight up like when you think about it,
Yeah,
evil. Like
absolutely. Yeah.
like she tortured him.
Yeah. You really got to see, Harry bond with his godfather, Sirius Black,
Yeah.
right? Because you never really saw them fight together.
Yeah,
Right.
in the beginning of the film too, right? You saw those little nuances, the
Yeah.
wink he did
Yeah.
when like they were talking about like the order and stuff like that. So like it was the first film when we saw their connection, like
Yeah.
as like godfather and godson.
Exactly. So I really enjoyed that. I thought that was really good to see. And obviously, when he died, I really felt for him because that's like the only family Harry has left.
Yeah,
Like
that's probably why I was on my lowest tier, just because like, man, when Gary Oldman leaves,
Yeah,
man, like
yeah.
he's no longer coming back to this franchise. His character is dead. I was
Yeah.
just like, man, yeah, this is just for me. That's why it was my lowest. So
And-
I understand.
And
Yeah.
also the fight sequence I really enjoyed. Towards the end where they're all in the ministry and stuff and they're like fighting.
Yeah.
and
So, like how you said, like
Yeah.
this was almost at your lowest tier, but at your mid tier,
Yeah.
same thing. I almost put this at my mid tier
Yeah.
solely because of that fight sequence.
Yeah.
Because that fight sequence, I am pretty sure is the only one we see between Dumbledore and Voldemort.
Yeah.
Yeah. Throughout the franchise, and it was incredible.
Yeah.
Like, this is the first time as like a watcher and a reader we actually saw in person the true power of both of these wizards
Definitely.
and how strong they are and how like they were throwing like crazy spells at each other, and like you were like no one is like on par with them. Like these two are the greatest, and you saw that. So I understand. Like, but throughout the movie, for me personally, I didn't like the first 90 to 2
Yeah, I mean,
hours.
like I said, like that's why it's made it to my mid tier because if I were to watch it again, it's not one of those Harry Potter movies that like I wouldn't mind watching it again.
Yeah.
And
I mean,
again,
again,
like,
all
yeah,
these
all of them are great,
pretty
yeah.
watchable, like
Yeah.
very watchable, right? Like it's
Yeah.
they're good.
So that but like I said, it had some redeeming qualities, right? Also to see that connection close in more and more between Voldemort and Harry was
Yeah.
interesting to see. Because I think in the fourth movie you got your first glimpse with of Voldemort, right? But in this fifth one, they're showing how like there's almost like this like telepathic communication going
Yeah.
on between them.
Which is like hinting that Harry's a Horcrux,
Yeah,
right? Like
yeah.
it didn't click for me even as a
Yeah.
reader, right? Like, but like those are the hints I think they were trying to make.
Yep. So this was the first movie in my mid tier,
Yep.
right? What's the first movie in your mid tier?
So similar to you, you know how you mentioned the Half-Blood Prince. The Half-Blood Prince is in my first part of the middle tier. To me, I kind of enjoyed certain aspects of it. I really did like Slughorn's character in his introduction. I think out of all the
He was cute. I
yeah,
liked him. Yeah.
out of all the defense against the dark arts teacher you see, other than Professor Lupin, he was the only one that was generally good.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty sure he is the last one standing. He
Right.
actually, he's the only one that doesn't die
Mhm.
in that film.
Yeah.
So I thought that was pretty cool. And then just an understanding his connection with Lord Voldemort, right?
Yeah.
Tom Riddle, when he was a student, I thought that was pretty cool. There's again like certain aspects of the movie were super dark. Like there's a lot of elements I didn't enjoy about it, but I did enjoy learning more about Tom Riddle
Mhm.
and the Horcruxes and like the journey like Dumbledore was doing to like find them and destroy them. That one famous scene, like we still see, you have to keep drinking, Professor. You have to
Yeah,
keep
yeah,
drinking.
yeah.
Like that still gets to me.
Mhm.
Like you can see like this man is struggling, but he doesn't want to do it, and Harry knows he doesn't want to kill the
Yeah,
only
yeah.
wizard that like has helped him or
Yeah.
helped raise them or has seen something in him.
It's almost like shoot, if I help him, I'm like almost killing him.
Yeah.
But if I don't, then I'm going against
It was
him.
it was such a like the beginning part of the film was not that great, but I think the ending is what got to me, especially that climatic scene between Malfoy, Dumbledore, Snape, and Harry, all of them together, right? Like that to me is like that's where like to me it made the movie. When we figured out like when Snape is like shh,
Mhm.
And then he comes in. Harry's thinking, "Oh, thank God! As much as I hate Snape,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I believe in him. He's like Dumbledore believes in him. He's gonna stop Malfoy."
Mhm.
And then then you see him kill Dumbledore, and then that just cinematography of Dumbledore falling down, incredible scene.
Yeah.
Personally, I just it didn't hit the mark fully. There was a lot of bad things about it in the beginning of it, but that's why it's like the first one in my mid tier. But again, this is like post Sirius Black's deaths, right? In this franchise for Harry, and like how Harry is dealing with that, because this is the first time we see he actually the closest person in his life die,
Mhm.
right, from the
Yeah.
fifth movie, and how
Yeah.
he's transitioning into that, and then we see the second closest person in his life die,
Right. That's
right?
true.
Like,
Yeah.
and he's gone through hell within 1 year.
Mhm.
So I thought like that aspect was pretty good.
Yeah.
But so going off of that, right? That's my first mid tier.
Mhm.
My second film.
Mhm.
This is where it gets tough, right?
Okay.
Because this is where nostalgia plays a role. This is
Yeah.
why it's like I was talking to FaZe earlier and saying 10 years ago my answer was different.
Mhm.
5 years ago my answer was different. We watch his films almost yearly at this point, and it shifts and changes based off of what we've seen. um but my second movie in this mid tier would be Chamber of Secrets.
Dude, same.
Okay, so yeah,
Yeah.
let's talk about it.
Okay.
You
All
talk
right.
about
So
it.
it was a great continuation from Sorcerer's Stone,
Yep,
right?
for sure.
Like, obviously, and also another thing we need to point out here is that the director of Sorcerer's Stone and Chamber of Secrets is the same,
Okay.
Chris Columbus.
Yeah, Chris Columbus.
And
Yeah,
fun
yeah.
fact, he's the one who directed the Home Alone movies.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And it wasn't until the other day, I think it was, yeah, this past Christmas, uh, Sean and I, my brother, we were rewatching the original Home Alone movies.
Okay,
And if
yeah.
you rewatch the original Home Alone movies, you get such a similar aesthetic to the first two Harry Potter
I
movies.
can see that. Yeah, no, I can see that for
Even
sure.
with the music, the Christmas
Yeah,
vibe.
like I mean, these are all like Christmas films.
Yeah,
Like when I think about Harry Potter, the reason why we want to watch Harry Potter
yeah.
marathon in Christmas is because of the first two
Because
films.
of the first two. But luckily, it was a very enjoyable watch for me. I was kind of under the like, oh, what's gonna happen next, right? Who
Yeah,
is, who opened the Chamber of Secrets, and how all these connections
that
are
they're
being made.
making it gaslighting us to making us think it was Hagrid
Yeah,
and things like that.
yeah, and I hadn't read the second book at the time, so I didn't really know what I was really going in for.
Mhm.
So I felt like there was a lot more suspense in this one.
When I was younger, when I was
Yeah,
probably in high school, this is my top three
yeah,
film.
yeah,
Like
yeah,
obviously the like seven films and six ones hadn't come out at this point, but like it was like you can't uptake this movie because of how I feel about
yeah.
it. And also like when we were kids, like Toys R Us was a thing. So like these
The
toys were coming out. The
sword,
sword, like
yeah,
come on, man. Like I felt like a Gryffindor when I would
yeah.
get that sword and like play around with it.
And if this movie came out today, people would soul clap in that scene where the what is it? The Phoenix comes in with
Yeah, yeah, and yeah. Like it
that.
was it
Yeah,
was like compared to the other films, like I know why it's like not as great, but compared to the lower tiers that we talked about, I know why it's so much better
right.
also, right? So
Yeah,
that's why I think what we said, this is our perfectly mid-tier movie.
yeah.
It's in the middle of our mid-tier, second on that list for both of us. Um
Dobby is also
yeah,
introduced in
Dobby
this one. Yeah.
introduction of Dobby was amazing. Aragog and the spiders,
Hmm.
like all these. There's so many elements of this movie that were incredible. It's just like that childish aspect too. Like this is that film where you would think the tone shifted to dark. Like it was pretty dark relatively,
Yeah.
but not that dark,
Not that
right?
dark.
Like the
Yeah.
darkness I think started really at in the third and fourth.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
those movies kind of set the tone, but
Yeah.
this one was like kind of humorous, like the Whomping Willow,
Yeah.
breaking the car and like the car like kicking them out, stuff like
And
that.
also how like Ron and his brothers are helping him evacuate
Oh yeah, in the
from
beginning
his
scene,
place.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, like this film has so many iconic
Diagon
moments.
Alley, like the way like he like goes in like the dark side of Diagon
Yeah,
Alley,
yeah,
right? So it's like little moments like that where I'm like, okay, I'm intrigued, like so that it was good. It was a good movie.
yeah. Again, the climax was incredible. Like him killing the basilisk was so cool. Him speaking parcel tongue, like Ron's leadership also was kind of like portrayed in this.
There
Like
was
you
like
were,
more mysteriousness I felt with this one.
yeah, because you didn't know what was happening, but you were curious and you were like, "Ooh, ooh, I don't want Hagrid to be the guy who
Yeah,
opened it,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
But yeah, I
yeah.
would say nostalgia wise, it's one of my favorite films. But if I'm thinking in a non-nostalgic factor, it's like right in the mid tier.
Mhm.
So that's my second. What would be your third in this
Um,
tier? Do you have a third one?
yeah, I
Okay.
do. So the third one is Sorcerer's Stone. I was kind of debating should this be in one of my top tier or mid tier, right? And it was really hard to not put this in top tier.
Yeah.
This movie almost made it to my top tier. Was at the very bottom
Yeah.
of the list. I like Sorcerer's Stone because I felt like it's like a feel good movie.
It
You know
is.
what I mean?
It's pretty good. Yeah.
It's a feel good movie. I felt like there was a lot of hope because the movie starts off with Harry, and he's like, is like with his uncle and aunt. They treat him very
Yep.
miserably. He's an orphan. He doesn't really like have the same privileges that Dudley has, for an example, right? So you kind of feel for him. You empathize with the character, right? He doesn't have any friends, and I like how like he starts. He gets the invitation for Hogwarts, so
Yep.
there's some hope. Then when he starts to go to Hogwarts, he meets Hermione and Ron in the train, right? And then he builds these friends, and then
Hmm.
he builds like this community of
That
friends.
trolley
And
scene still
that
iconic.
it's so
Right?
iconic,
Yeah.
so iconic. So I felt like
Everything from the trolley.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I felt like as kids, and even as adults, sometimes we want that sense of belonging,
Yeah.
and I think you really got that in Sorcerer's Stone, right? Where you see, Harry's like the underdog, right? And you're rooting for him. He's actually much more powerful than you think, and you're gonna find that out later on. But it's like you're rooting for him,
Yep.
not because of like what he has gone through with his parents dying and stuff, but because he's such a nice kid,
Hmm.
and there's so much hope that he provides you with and himself with. So I don't know. I felt like it was just a very good movie. Like I like what this movie did that a lot of movies need to learn from Sorcerer's Stone is how to build an all new world.
Yeah. I mean, like they built it from
Yeah,
like nothing like this has happened, right?
nothing.
Like, I think they did a great job
And
with
then
it.
the character development, how you instantly start hating on Draco Malfoy.
Yeah.
How you immediately start rooting for Harry. How you love Ron and Hermione as the friends. Like little things like that really make a huge impact. And then there's like mysteriousness. All right, Snape, why does he have like a cold shoulder? And Quirrell, what's up with him? Why is he so weird? Like, and so there's a sense of mystery.
No, I can see that. Like it was tough. Like again, like we keep mentioning this. Like it's
Yeah,
none of these are bad movies. Like it's just our opinion, and like it'll change too
yeah,
sometimes.
yeah.
Which I would like to go on with my last of this movie in this
Okay,
tier. This movie for the longest time was in my top three,
okay.
and it even now painfully hurts me to put it in
Hmm.
this mid tier.
Okay.
But there's reasons why,
Okay.
and that movie is Goblet of Fire.
Okay. All
And I
right.
think that's a shock because even now, like I used to tell people, my favorite book is Goblet of Fire.
Hmm.
I think it's other than the seventh book, right? I can't compare it to that ending. But um, to me, the Goblet of Fire was the perfect top three movie and book. Like it's the only one definitively that most people can say hits the mark on the film and the book pretty well.
Hmm.
But when I go back and when I reread the book and saw certain elements of the movie, it just felt like a highlight reel. Like
Yeah.
they were skipping key pivotal moments. They were rushing towards things. And this, honestly, I think should have been one of the first movies that should have been split up into a part one, part two.
Hmm.
Just because of how much happened, how many details were happening. And I do like it a lot because there's certain aspects where that climax, when we are introduced to Lord Voldemort for the first time and see the killing curse in action, incredible. Like when I'm seeing it on my list, it hurts to put it
Yeah.
in this tier. And honestly, like it might change. Like
Yeah.
it is still a top. I still believe it's arguably the best film and movie like
Hands
duo.
down. Yeah. Well,
Like
yeah.
just because the book is incredible and like I'm being nitpicky now with the movie aspect of it, but like it's when that darkness is set from the second and third, it's you see all this darkness. The humor aspect of it's really good. I think it did the elements of darkness and humor probably the best out of all these franchise
Oh yeah.
out of the
Definitely.
series.
All right. So now Are we ready to
The
move on
top,
to the
yeah.
top?
So now process of elimination, I kind of know what your top three are,
Yep.
and you should know what my top three are.
And you probably know what
Yeah.
our top three are
But
by
there's
now.
a
But
clear top two that we both have. I'm excited to see where we go with this. I'm pretty sure I can tell what your top two are.
all
It's
right.
interesting to see how that third film in both of our lists
Yeah.
is different.
All right. So I'm gonna start off with what's the lowest on my top list.
Okay.
And once again, these three are hard to even say like 1, 2, or 3. Like
Yeah.
I can't rank them. They're just there. All
Yeah,
right. So
honestly, yeah, they're.
yeah,
I get it.
they're
Yeah,
all
I
great. So
understand.
Deathly Hallows Part 2.
Okay.
This is the epic conclusion of the whole franchise. Obviously, it's not just a follow-up to Deathly Hallows Part 1,
Mhm.
but it's just the epic conclusion, and I was very nervous to watch this because, sometimes they don't, hit the mark, like
Yeah.
with the like sometimes like even with shows, right? Sometimes you watch something and everything's going great, but the finale just doesn't hit. It doesn't stick the landing.
Yeah.
This one did. It was perfect.
From the beginning sequence of them breaking into the what was it, Gringotts,
Yeah.
right, in the dragon, I was like, they're starting off like this.
Action, like from the beginning, because usually with all Harry Potter movies there's a little bit of, I mean, there's, like you could say Order of the Phoenix started with some action,
Yeah.
right? You could say that like even Goblet of Fire,
Yeah,
sort
like
of
that
start,
scary aspect.
but
of
this
it,
was
yeah.
like straight up
Yeah.
action. You're in it, you're with Harry, Ron, Hermione, you're with the
Yeah.
characters you love, and they're like, there's an action set piece. It's really like you're right from the beginning. It feels like a roller coaster.
Mhm.
That's what I liked about it. And from the beginning till the end, you were hooked. There's going to be that final battle sequence, which will be like the father of all battle sequences in the Harry Potter franchise. And it was amazing to
It was great.
finally see Harry versus Voldemort. Epic. And then when Harry goes to Voldemort, to sacrifice.
Yeah, sacrifice himself.
Epic.
Dude, I get goosebumps thinking about it now. Like even
Yeah.
when like he got killed, I was
Yeah.
like, there's no way. But like, wait, he could be dead. But like, there's no way. But like,
Yeah.
he actually could be dead. Like,
Yeah. And I remember in the trailer when the trailer starts off with Voldemort looking at him, it's like, the Harry Potter, the boy who
yeah,
lived,
goosebumps, bro.
come to die.
Yeah.
And that's where, and then when he closes his eyes, I was like, whoa.
Yeah.
And once again, I had read the book.
Yeah,
All right.
yeah.
So I know
We
what's
already
going
knew
to
what
happen.
was, yeah.
But somehow watching it, you're that excitement is still there
Yeah.
to see it happen in live action, and then like I don't know, it was beautiful to see. In the 19 years later sequence, beautifully
Mhm,
shot. Just
mhm.
what, like a minute long?
Yeah,
if
yeah, if
anything?
even like less than 2 minutes, I'm pretty sure. Yeah.
I felt like the action, the emotions, everything hit you. But then again, we also have to understand that this was a, like a follow-up, direct follow-up to part 1 of Deathly
Yeah.
Hallows, right? So yeah.
Arguably,
yeah.
like those two, if you combine them into one, it's
Yeah.
probably number one.
Yeah.
But like movie wise, they
Right.
split them into two, so we have to rate them as two separate movies.
Yeah.
So that was your first on your list.
Yep.
So funny thing, this is where I think we disagree. This is
Okay.
our biggest disagreement. Deathly Hallows Part 1. This is the
Oh,
beginning. Yeah, this is
You liked the beginning more.
Yes.
Okay.
So like later on, like Deathly Hallows Part 2 is still in this list, but in the bottom of this tier, for top tier, I would put that Part 1. Personally, like this is where I was having trouble with because it was close between the mid tier and Goblet of Fire. Which
Dang, so this one was part 1 was on the end of the list.
yeah, for you,
Okay,
yeah. And the reasons why I want to give it is because
almost the end of the list.
Yeah.
The second.
the reason why is just because I liked how it first started off, right, with the funny yet serious sense of tone with like Harry, like we got to get you out of here, and then everyone drinks their Polyjuice potion, and there's like 10 different Harrys or whatever. I thought that was cool, and then I'm like excited to watch. I'm smiling, and then at the end of that sequence, I find out Hedwig dies and Moody
Yeah.
dies, and I'm like, whoa, okay, so a lot just happened. And then going off from that, after the wedding with Ron's older brother and Flora getting married and stuff like that, that's when I think the movie shifted for me. And why I put it in this top tier is because when you think about Harry Potter, right, you think about 3 characters. You think about Harry, Ron, and Hermione. And I think this is the only film that predominantly all 3 characters, we followed through them together from
Yeah.
beginning to end. Every other film, like they're split up doing their own thing sometimes. I mean, they're together, but they're also focuses on like Dumbledore's journey or Snape's journey or Harry by himself. But Harry was not by himself in this movie for the first time,
Yeah.
like in any sequence, pretty
Yeah.
much. He
And this
was,
is also the first movie, and correct me if I'm wrong, where there's not a single sequence of any of the characters being in Hogwarts. They're
yeah,
all it's all
yeah,
like London.
yeah. Like
That I
I'm pretty
really
sure there's
enjoyed. Yeah.
side characters like they relate back to that, but Harry, Ron, and Hermione are not in Hogwarts at this point. They're on the run.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like after the wedding, they never return back to Hogwarts until the final.
That is
scene.
something I really enjoyed, even though this is
Yeah.
still towards the end of my list. I did enjoy that. Okay, finally you're seeing these characters outside of Hogwarts.
Yeah.
And
Like you
you're
were
seeing them
saying,
in the
like,
streets of London.
Yeah, which is cool. Like Hermione's like we saw her genius as a Muggle, right? Like she and her sacrifice she made. To me, like as an adult now,
Yeah.
I'm thinking about it. As a kid, I didn't think about it as much, but now I'm like to like have your parents forget about you. It's so emotional.
Yeah.
Like the sacrifice you have to make to like make sure they're safe, but at the same time, they will never remember you ever again.
Right.
And she had to make that sacrifice for
Yeah.
her friends, her world, like her other world. She had to sacrifice to keep both worlds safe and make this huge sacrifice as a character. And then I just like I know you mentioned like Ron's funny scene where like he saw like he was getting these like dreams or thoughts of Harry and Hermione like kissing in that weird nude scene
Yeah,
that was
yeah, yeah.
still kind of out of pocket.
Yeah.
But like I like the aspect of it because it showed how dark and powerful the Horcrux is.
Right.
Right.
Can
Like
mess with your
you would
head and
see
stuff,
him
yeah.
like he already was going through it, but it amplified his anger or his that jealousy feeling he was having because he was seeing these two probably the greatest wizards he's seen in his grade, right, in his class, like bonding and doing things, and he's just on the run with them. Like he's not making an impact.
Yeah.
But then like he later on does when he's the one who gets the sword and
Yeah.
he destroys the locket himself. But
yeah.
like just seeing that aspect of things, I just really like that element of him, all three of them being together. Hermione's quick wits when like they almost get tagged
Mhm.
by that group of like bounty hunters
Yeah,
basically,
yeah.
and then she quickly like disfigures Harry's face.
Yeah.
And then from then going to the next sequence when she's tortured
Mhm.
like by Bellatrix, and like that was like I can still hear her screaming. I think that's like
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
like the craziest one of the craziest parts of the films when you literally hear her shrieking
Yeah.
and screaming. Like it's still like makes me emotional when I think about it. And
Yeah,
like you're
same.
seeing Harry and Ron stuck in like that prison and they can't do anything about it.
Yeah.
And then you see Malfoy come to the
Yeah.
rescue. They asked Draco directly, they're like, "Do you know who that is?" And he's like, "I don't know." He damn well knows that's
Yeah.
Harry Potter.
Yeah, yeah,
He
yeah,
doesn't
yeah.
say anything. Obviously, like he knows it, but he doesn't say anything. That's when you like get that aspect of
Yeah.
like,
That
dang,
was a
good or
good
bad.
sequence, though, yeah.
Just so like that element, and then starting with Hedwig dying to Dobby dying. This man just went through like he already lost so much in the beginning of the sixth movie,
Yeah, yeah.
and then seeing like his non-human elements, but like people he still loved
Mhm.
die right away. And that aspect was like you have to feel for Harry. At
And this is
point.
where you realize, like, okay, shit's getting real.
Yeah.
Like, people, there are high stakes with this one.
I want to know where we put the third film, because the third film, if you haven't been paying attention, is now locked in for both of our top
Prisoner
two.
of Azkaban, yeah.
Yeah. So I'm gonna ask you, what is your next on the list?
I was gonna say Goblet of Fire. is
Okay,
number
okay.
two. Yeah. And the reason why I say that, wait, you just talked about one, right? You just
Yeah, I just talked.
okay.
Oh yeah. So then my next one, like how you preluded, would be Deathly Hallows as well.
Okay.
I know we already talked about it. That's next on my list.
Okay.
Just part one and part two, like to me, like I couldn't put them in like separate lists just
Yeah.
because of how I think of it as one book, right? But then they're two separate films.
Right, that makes sense. That makes sense. Yeah,
so-
because if you look at them as one like 4 hour long
Yeah.
movie, it's pretty good,
Yeah.
right? It's more like the first half is slower, but then
Yeah.
it like becomes super
Because like the
action-packed.
second one was like straight up action, like you
Action,
mentioned.
yeah.
Like they started off with the breaking into the bank and ended up with that super climatic
Yeah.
scene between Harry and Voldemort, and between that was the war, like between Hogwarts and Voldemort's army, and it was
Yeah.
just great. I think we already touched up on it, but like the elements of like seeing Neville's character slicing through the snake, amazing. Seeing Ron's mom, call Bellatrix a bitch on camera, like
Yeah.
on in
Oh
person,
yeah.
saying like
Yeah. You never saw
we've
that
never
in
seen
yeah.
her get angry at
Yeah.
anything.
Yeah.
She only gets annoyed at her kids,
Yeah.
and then seeing all these characters that we loved
Yeah.
like pass away on screen. I think like arguably it's like we mentioned like the fourth one is top three, but the seventh book and film is number one.
So let's do something different now. All right.
Yeah.
So now on your top three list, we already know on Adil's top three list, he's got Harry Potter and Deathly Hallows Part 1
Yep.
and then Part 2, right?
Mhm.
Which means that Adil's number one is Prisoner of Azkaban.
Yep.
My second one is Goblet of Fire, which
Yep.
means that our number one favorite Harry Potter movie is the same, Prisoner of
Yep.
Azkaban. I did not see that one coming. But before we talk about Prisoner of Azkaban, I'm just going to quickly go over Goblet of Fire.
Yep.
The reason I really enjoyed Goblet of Fire was that I kind of wanted to see all the characters in different environments, right? We see Hogwarts, right? But I want the world of Hogwarts to be explored a little more, because we've seen that, what is it, like the Forbidden Forest, right? We've seen that. We've seen a little bit of Hagrid's place. This is the first time where you're seeing Harry in situations that are outside of Hogwarts. Still
Yep.
in Hogwarts, but like literally outside the halls of Hogwarts, right? Because like right now, you are literally seeing him like go underwater.
Yeah.
You are seeing him go through this maze. You are seeing him in a Quidditch tournament, but it's different. There's dragons involved, right? So like I think you and I both love Quidditch, right? But I
Mhm.
loved how this one like was even more interesting because there's a dragon involved,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. The dragons are so cool. Hungarian horntail, like
Yeah.
it's just so
and
cool.
and there's like little, like, it's games. It's literally like, like games and obstacles that they have to fight
Yep.
through to win this cup, right?
Mhm.
So it's like sport, it's like sports and competition, right? And that's something I really really enjoyed. And also for the first time ever, you see Voldemort. That for me was epic.
Yeah.
And obviously the deaths,
Like in the
yeah,
flesh, not like
yeah,
Sorcerer Stone when he was like part of the head, or
yeah,
Tom Riddle as a memory,
right,
right?
right.
Like you actually saw him in the flesh.
Yeah. At the same time, I felt like, okay, these characters are also growing. I felt like
Mhm.
physically, Harry, Ron, Hermione, all the characters actually looked very different.
Yeah, the long hair. Remember we also like there's
yeah.
a point where Faiz and I also had like long hair. This is like the trend and style, and I liked how like the actors were also implementing that.
Yeah,
Like, it's kind of cool.
absolutely. Yeah. So that's something I really, really enjoyed. And there's danger now. I mean, obviously there was danger in the first movie, second movie, third movie, but this is like Harry could literally die. And we've seen that. Like obviously, Robert Pattinson's character dies, right?
Yeah.
Cedric Diggory. Then there's also a lot of sequences where I'm like, dang, any one of them could have just died. Whether
Yeah.
it was underwater, the Quidditch tournament, like this is like straight up danger, right?
Yeah.
So I thought that was very interesting. Just like, and also it is a long book, right? Obviously they didn't cover a lot I mean, there's a lot that they could have covered, but they can't because of the runtime. But I felt like for what they did with the movie from a cinematic perspective was amazing. There was almost some elements of horror in this one too, which was very interesting.
Like that the second task was the dragons are like scary,
Yeah.
but that second task with the like the sirens, and
Yeah.
that was like creepy and scary, and I was
Super
like,
creepy,
whoa,
yeah.
like they could like we didn't even know that
Yeah.
aspect of the world existed.
Exactly,
So you're
yeah.
right. This film did like the first three focused more on Hogwarts, but this was the first film that brought in outside Hogwarts elements like the Bobatons and then
Yeah.
Durmstrang, like, and then World Cup. Like you saw Hogwarts, you saw the Wizarding World for the first time.
Exactly, yeah. It actually felt like a world now,
Yeah.
right? So that was Goblet of Fire. But when I talk about Goblet of Fire, I have to immediately talk about Prisoner of Azkaban as well, because that's where I felt like the shift in tone started to change a little bit. Because if you look at the first two movies,
Yeah.
they have the same look and feel, the same
Yeah.
aesthetic.
Even though the Chamber Secrets was technically dark, it wasn't like there was like the huge like lightheartedness of it.
Right.
There were still kids.
There were still kids, yeah.
Like you didn't see the darkness of it till it was introduced in the third film.
And I think in the third movie, if you even notice, it's like the aesthetic got a little darker.
Yeah. Like that blue tint, right? The blue dark tint.
Like, and there's like, it's like like even though you saw scenes of winter throughout, but in this one it felt like even though it's not like snowing a lot in the movie, it felt like cold darkness. Like you felt more dark with this movie.
Like the Vada Kedavra spell, right? Cold and dark and murderous.
Yeah, and then you also witness Sirius Black, right? And you
Yeah.
know there's a serial killer, right? You find
Yeah.
out later who he really is, but throughout the movie, you're like, there's a serial killer out on the loose, and he's after Harry. Like,
And we didn't like we read the books, but at the same time we were like, this dude looks deranged. Like
yeah,
he looks evil and crazy. Like his mugshot is literally him like yelling
yeah.
and going crazy, right?
In the first two movies, it was all about Voldemort, Tom Riddle, right?
Yeah.
That's kind of what it was all about. This one, it was more about Sirius Black. There's
Yeah.
another.
And we didn't know there was another like evil element
Yeah,
in the wizarding world.
exactly.
Pretty
Yeah.
much.
So that was very interesting. Also, you got to see Harry, Ron, and Hermione like in different clothing. Like they
Yeah.
weren't just in their uniforms the whole time, right?
Oh yeah, the streetwear, like that it was still iconic. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure it's one of the only films other than when they're on
Yeah,
the
yeah,
run where they're
yeah.
wearing like normal
Like hoodies
clothes.
and stuff. Like
Yeah.
they're wearing hood. And also, I liked how like actual students, right? Their ties and fully like tied up.
Yeah.
They're not fully like their hair like they're not fully like kept.
Yeah.
Like that's what I really like. They're kind of unkept and stuff. That I thought was very interesting. And I don't know, they just seem a little more mature. Then in the fourth movie, that's when they get even more mature. So you
Yeah.
see a progression in their age, maturity levels, and darkness, right? You
Mhm.
got an all new director that came in with the third movie, right? And I think he took it in a different tone, which I really enjoyed.
Yeah.
And
And that was that shift you were talking about from the first film that people expect to happen in second films
Yeah.
that happened in this film.
yeah, and then also Dementors. The first time you see Dementors, right? And you don't know how to fight them, and this
Yeah.
and how Harry's trying to learn about how to fight them, and all epic. I
like
really
in
like
the
that.
first sequence pretty much of the film, because they're on the train, everything gets like icy cold.
Yeah.
Like you're like, oh, what is this? And then you see these creepy hands come up, like, and you're like, what is going
Yeah.
on? Like what is this? And honestly, I remember because we were kids growing up watching this film. So when like Game Boys and Nintendos were coming out, and I remember like going to like a game store, and like how you can like play around with
Yeah.
games.
Yeah.
I think they came out with the video game around the same time,
Yeah.
and you would see the elements of Dementors in that, and I was just like, yeah, this is too scary.
Yeah.
Like I can't do it.
Like it got dark. Like I think this is like the first time where like, Harry Potter started to go in this dark direction.
Yeah.
And also like with the what is it, like the prophecy stuff
Yeah.
in those classes that they would start going
yeah,
through.
that was creepy. Like death, the omen is
Yeah.
death, right?
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
you're just like,
yeah.
oh, that's not good. You're gonna die, bro.
And then also when Hermione like punches Malfoy, like
yeah,
it was nice to see them like out of their uniforms,
Yeah.
right? And just being like themselves, right? And also that whole time traveling thing.
dude, that was still so cool. I'm not gonna overthink it.
Yeah.
Like it's time
Yeah,
travel. It's
yeah, yeah.
always any film. No one
Yeah.
does it perfectly.
And it's
okay?
the world of magic.
Yeah,
So
like I'm
yeah.
not gonna overthink it, but I just as a kid I was like, oh, this is so cool, this is so dope, and then them going back to save the hippogriff, right?
Yeah.
Like Bucky, right? Like it's just cool to see that sequence, and like this was the first like film where they bring this dark tone, this shiftness in it, and like it started from like the Dementors, but it ended up with like Sirius Black and like Peter Pettigrew, and finding out that
Mhm.
like this is the first film when we found out about the Mordor's map,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah,
and
yeah,
it was
yeah.
such a cool thing because you're like, I wish that was a real thing in
Yeah.
real life. The reason why this is my number one is because I literally don't have anything bad to say about this
Same.
film.
Same.
So like when like there's great things to say about almost every single film that we watched, and this is the one where I honestly like I love the way everything happened.
Definitely.
The book, right? It stayed true to it to the most part. It's not the biggest book. It's one of the smaller sizes of the
Mhm.
books. It's not the biggest movie. It's more on the average. So I think this film just did everything so beautifully.
From the aesthetic, the pacing, the suspense, the characterization and everying
Yeah.
for me was
Even
perfect.
reading it, I was like, yeah, this is a great like book, right? Like before even getting to the Goblet of Fire, I was like, this book was my favorite
Yeah.
at a point.
And I actually have a fun fact for you guys. So, just like we went over our favorite movies,
Mhm.
Do you know which one was Daniel Radcliffe's favorite Harry Potter movie?
Was it this?
No, it
Fourth?
wasn't
Was
this.
it the fourth one?
It was Order of the Phoenix.
Interesting.
Yeah, I was kind of surprised to hear that. But then again, I feel like, but I do feel like for them, it's very different because they have a very different context. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? In terms of filming, like apparently he hated the Half-Blood Prince because he was going through his own personal stuff.
Oh yeah, like
Alcohol.
Which
and this
is
and
you
that.
can kind
You
of
can kind of see it. There's
yeah.
some part, and he says it himself. He
Yeah.
said it where he
'Cause-
kind of looks a little out.
Yeah, and he mentioned it in interviews later on, right, in the
Yeah.
career. But like when I go back, when I found out when he said that, I was like, Yeah, I can see that,
Yeah.
especially in some of the beginning early scenes in that movie.
Definitely, yeah, yeah. But hey, this was a relatively long episode, and we didn't think it was going to be that long, but I definitely enjoyed this because I got to fully understand like which like movies are my favorites
Yeah.
and why. Like I've never ranked any of the movies before, so this is the first time for me. Maybe for the
I mean, like I rank them in my head, but like as we mentioned, like right,
Yeah.
ranking them 15 years ago versus 10 years ago versus now is
Yeah.
it's gonna completely change because of the way I view elements like cinematography and nostalgia, right? It
Yeah.
changes.
But at the end of the day, we also want to know your thoughts. Which Harry Potter movies do you enjoy? Which ones did you not enjoy? And did any of them link up like to our rankings,
Yeah.
right? Like Prisoner of Azkaban, it's our favorite Harry Potter movie apparently. So let us know in the comments section below. And obviously, if you haven't hit that subscribe button, hit that subscribe button for all things Harry Potter and more. And we'll see you next time.